Well, hey there, guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're going to make a plastic wrapped space saver. Well, what on earth is a plastic wrapped space saver? Well, it all has to do with plastic wrap, food wrap, the stuff most of us use in our kitchen. And I find this stuff lying around forever. The box is in the drawer, it's in the cupboard, it gets mangled, it gets banged up. So I have an idea, and we're going to try it today. This is an experiment, guys, but we're going to try this out and see how we make out. So let's head over to the bench and I'll show you what I've got in mind for this one. Well, this is the stuff here that I'm talking about. This box looks like it's in pretty good shape, but that's because it's brand new. I bought it specifically for this project. And they do have the metal serrated edges. And again, because this one is new, this one is actually cutting, well, sort of half decently. I don't like the way these cut. I don't like the way that the plastic wrap is all crinkled up afterwards, making it more difficult to use. So what we're going to start off with, I'm going to put this aside, and I have 2 pieces of maple here. Now I have milled these to be 1/4 of an inch thick, and what I need is a few strips. So I'm going to rip this into 2 pieces that are 2.5 inches wide, and then another 2 pieces that are 3 inches wide. So 2 pieces at 2.5 and 2 pieces at 3. And once you have that done, we're going to cut each one to its final length of 13 inches long. Now, yours may change if your roll of plastic wrap is different. So you just want to make sure that it's going to fit within that 13 inches. This roll is 12 inches wide. So giving myself a little bit of wiggle room, we're going to go with 13 inches long on these ones. Well, I have one of my 3-inch pieces clipped to the bench here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a center line all the way down at 1.5 inches in from the edge. I'm then going to draw another line at 1 3/16 and 1 13/16, just like that. And that should yield a 5/8 inch wide groove or slot right in the middle from edge to edge of these, and it does. So what I want to do now is coming in from each edge, we're going to measure in at 3/4 of an inch. And we'll just draw a line there and then one on the opposite side. Now this is a fly by the seat of your pants kind of build. So I'm going to be checking and making up measurements as I go, essentially. And you know what? That yields right there a 12-inch slot. I don't like it. That's too tight because our cellophane is 12 inches. And this is going to end up being the slot that the cellophane comes out of. So I'm actually going to back each one up 1/4 of an inch. So instead of drawing from the end at 3/4, we're going to draw in from the end at 1/2 inch. And that should give us a 12.5 inch slot, and it does. And that gives us a little more room to work with when pulling the plastic wrap out. So what I want to do now is I'm going to get a circle template. I'm going to round this off on each side, and then I'm going to take it over to the scroll saw and carefully cut that out. And I'll see you back here at the bench when I get that done. And at this point, you should have something that looks like this. Now, I would suggest around the entire perimeter here of this hole on both sides, I would use a 1/8 round over and run the 1/8 round over completely around it on both sides, just to soften that maple so that it doesn't mess up our plastic wrap as we're pulling it out, because this will be the exit hole. So now we need to put that aside, and we're going to concentrate on our other 3-inch piece. And while I do have a router bit that will do it for me, I know that some of you won't. So we're going to do it by hand. And what I'm referring to here is keyholes. So what I'm going to do is, for starters, just like we did before, we're going to draw a center line because this is where it's going to mount. So now that we have our center line drawn, we need to know what size hardware we're going to use. In my case, I'm going to be using number 8 screws. So the locking slot, or the smallest section here, has to be 3/16 of an inch wide. So we have this mark at 1.5. We're just going to come back 3/32 from that center line on each side and draw a line. And that should give us a 3/16 wide slot there. And it does. That's perfect. So where do we want our mounting holes? Well, I'm going to come in on the one side at 1 inch. And we're going to make our slot, let's say, 1.5 inches. So there is the limits of our slot. So at this side, for the head of the screw, I'm going to drill an 11/32 diameter hole. And then on this side, I'm going to drill a 3/16 diameter hole. And then using the scroll saw, I'm going to join them up together by cutting along the outside lines. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to come in 2.5. And what do we come in on this side? 1. And we're going to come in 1 inch on this side. Now the difference here is that this outside hole is not going to be drilled at 11/32. In fact, you will drill the inside hole on this side at 11/32 and this one at 3/16. That way, when the head of the screw goes into each of these larger holes, you can slide the whole unit to one side. So I'm going to get those holes drilled, and then I'll show you what it is that it looks like, and then we'll connect them with the scroll saw. Okay, and now all you really need to do is connect the dots, basically. Cut right along those outside lines. I'm going to use a number 3 blade just because it's only 1/4 inch material and we want a nice thin kerf and a smooth finish. So just let me get that done. I'll be right back. And just like that, you've made keyhole mounting. Now I have a number 8 by 3/4 screw here. You just want to make sure before you carry on that, I'll do it from the other side so you can see that the head of the screw fits in and that it slides all the way to the end of the slot and doesn't pull out of that slot. And you'll check both. If for some reason it doesn't fit and it's too tight, just get in there with a file and file it a little bit. Don't try to recut it because you'll end up overcompensating. Okay, so now that we have that done, we really need to work on the end caps of this plastic wrap holder. So these are the pieces that we have, and you may notice 2 extra pieces here. And that's because out of the 1/4 inch thick maple, I have cut 2 squares that are 3 inches by 3 inches. I have also cut for the ends 2 pieces. In this case, I'm using poplar. They are 9/16 of an inch thick, just a little less than 1/2 inch, guys. You don't want it sticking out beyond this edge here. But they are cut to 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. And right in the center here, I have drilled a 13/16 diameter hole. And that is to house this 3/4 inch diameter dowel. Now, in most cases with these rolls of plastic wrap, they just sit there kind of friction fit sitting in the bottom. And I think that causes resistance and that makes them harder to peel out. So I'm trying to improve the design by giving it an axle to sit on and turn on. So what we're going to do is this with the keyholes, this is the top. This with your slot that the cellophane or the plastic wrap comes out of, this is the bottom. We need to put on the front edge, it doesn't matter which one, we're going to pick one of these 2.5 inch wide pieces. So there is our front edge. And our 1/2 inch thick, or in this case, 7/16 thick pieces of poplar They will get mounted right there with the dowel in between. Now we're just checking for fit here. We just want to make sure that the dowel fits. We don't even really need it in there right now. From there, our bottom piece with our slot in it will sit like this. And then our keyhole piece will sit like this. And then our end caps will go right here. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to dry fit this and clamp this together and show you what it should look like at this point, because we need to kind of do something a little different here. We can't just glue this together, because if we do, we'll never be able to change the plastic wrap roll. So let me get this clamped together and I'll show you what I've got in mind. So here we have the front put in place. And if I just turn this around, this is the back. You can see that the back is open and this dowel can come out of here. That was just a test for fit. So at this point now, with this just like this, leaving off your backer piece and leaving off your two end caps, we need to glue this together. So that's what we're going to do. You want to make sure that you're having everything lined up as best you can, because this front piece here is eventually going to sit in this section here, but it has to be removable. So that's why it's not being glued in right now. So get this assembly glued up looking just like this. And then once we're done with that, I'll show you what to do next. Well, here it is the next day and our project is dry. So this is what you're looking at as far as the box goes. So guys, the next step is quite simply taking your 3-inch squares, one of them on the one end, pick an end, it doesn't matter which one, it's going to get glued in place. So glue it so that it's flush with all your edges. The other one, however, needs to be removable. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a couple of screws here so that it can be removed when we need to. So just 4 small screws, we're going to drill and countersink them and get this mounted in place. As well, we also need this section here, which is the back, to be able to be removed. So we know that we have a 7/16 inch thick piece of board here. So at 7/32 in from the edge of this piece of board, of our backer board, 7/16 of an inch in, and probably about maybe a 1/2 inch in from either edge, we're going to drill and countersink, and again for a small screw, one here and one here on both sides of our board, because this face needs to be removable as well. So I'm going to use number 6 screws for that. I'm going to get the drilling done, get the screws in place, and I'm going to get this end cap glued on. And once we get that done, I'm going to give the whole thing a good sanding, and then I'll show you what we're looking at when I get that finished up. So I have the one end screwed in place and countersunk. I'll show you that in a bit after the clamps are removed, but just something I want to point out. Even though I've drilled and countersunk here and drilled our pilot holes and screwed this in place and tested it, make sure that you remove it before you glue in the end cap on the opposite side. You don't want squeeze out to accidentally glue this in place. Also, here in this hole for your dowel, you want to make sure to clean up any squeeze out so that it doesn't impede the dowel being able to be inserted afterwards. Okay, so while I'm here already talking, as I said, we're going to sand this all up once it is done and dry. We screw this back together, as well as giving it a good sanding. I'm going to soften all of the edges all the way around with a 1/8 round over. And at that point, it's almost a finished project, and I'll see you at that point. And there we go, that is that done. Now the only thing that I have added is a finger hole, a 1-inch through hole here on the back side, just to make it a little easier to pull this panel out when you need to. But there's nothing more that you can do with this project now, guys, until we apply a finish. So I'm going to get a finish applied to this, and I'll see you when it's cured. Well, truth be told, it has been a week. I have applied the finish. The finish is dry. I applied a couple coats of water-based Varathane, sanding with 400 grit in between coats. But there's one more thing that we need to add here. Now, guys, I did say that on these rolls, it has this metal cutter. And for all intents and purpose, those metal cutters are absolutely useless. They're horrible. So I have ordered one of these, and this is a plastic wrap cutter. It essentially is a little blade that's in this blue handle. It's going to attach to our project here, and what happens is your plastic wrap gets stretched across here. It kind of sticks to this little surface here, and then you slide this across and it cleanly slices your plastic wrap. So this is a 3M adhesive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little swipe with rubbing alcohol just to make sure it's 100% clean. And on the front edge of the opening, we are going to place this cutter. Now, guys, with any adhesive like this, it's best if you can. Sometimes you're unable to, but it is best if you can put it down and lightly clamp it and let it sit for a while. That gives the adhesive time to set. The adhesive on tape is no different than any other adhesive. It needs time to set. And if you just stick it on there and just leave it, it's going to fall off, or it could potentially fall off. You ever notice the longer that you have tape on something, the harder it is to get off? That's because the adhesive is setting. So we are going to get this on here centered, and we are going to clamp this down and let it dry. And once this adhesive, you don't need to clamp it for 10 minutes or so. But once this is set on here and we're happy with the adhesive of it, I'm going to put it together, show you how the roll goes in, and then show you how the cutter works, and then we're going to install it. Okay, so it's been a while. I'm happy with the adhesion on here, or I'm satisfied that it's going to be enough. And what you want to do is, I just want to show you how this plastic wrap mounts in here. Now, I have removed the one end piece here, and that allows your rod, your dowel to slide out of your unit. Now, we need our roll of plastic, so I'm just going to take this out of our flimsy little cardboard box, and I would prefer it to roll around this way here. That way, when it comes out, it rolls up, kind of rides on the edge here, and then comes out. You can do it the other way if you want. It's up to you. So we're just going to place our roll in here. We're going to slide our dowel into the roll. And once you get that done, you can screw this end cap back on. Now, I have placed here saran hole with an arrow pointing up, and that is for nothing more than to give me proper alignment of this thing every single time that I place it on there. You know, sometimes your holes aren't perfect. If you mount it the wrong way, it can be crooked and be an eyesore. And even though this is going to be mounted under the counter, I don't know, there's something about having it right that just appeals to me. So we want to get this end cap screwed on. And now with that done, we can now flip this over and we can screw our backing on. And once we get that put into place, I'll just show you how the cutter works. All right, and with everything together here, we're just going to rotate this till we find the end. There it is. We're going to bring this over our cutter and just lay it down across it and zip it across, and there you go. Look at that. Look at how nicely that cut. So the next time you just take this across your cutter, slide it, and done. Pull it across your cutter, slide it, and done. All that's left to do now is mount this underneath the cupboards. And there you have it, a Space Saver plastic wrap box. Guys, this project really came about in a strange kind of a way. I never really had a need for it. This wasn't a project that was made out of necessity. But what happened was I was kind of surfing around on Amazon. That's a dangerous thing to do, by the way. Don't do it. I don't recommend it. It'll cost you a lot of money. But I was surfing around on Amazon and I saw these cutters. And I thought, what the heck is that? And I clicked on it and checked it out. And then the idea hit me, you know what? We've always got these darn things sitting around, taking up space in the drawers or in the cupboard. The boxes are always mangled. The cutters are notoriously horrible. I always have problems with them. So I thought, why not give them a try? And honestly, guys, the cutters are dirt cheap. They're less than $3 a piece. So I ended up ordering them, and then from there I started to think about how I could make a box that would hold plastic wrap in order to not necessarily put it in the drawer, but I wanted to get it out of that drawer to clear up the space. And that's when the under the cupboard thing kind of came to me, and I started to play in my mind only with that design. Once that design was kind of in my head, I thought, you know what, let's bring it out to the shop, do a fly by the seat of my pants build. And this is what I came up with. And I have to say, number one, it looks great. It's a great looking box. It's just a maple box, but it really does look good. That satin varnish that's on it really gives it a nice little slight sheen under there. The sad part is that you can't really see it because it's up underneath the upper kitchen cupboards, and there's a lip there that sort of semi-hides it. If you stand off into the entranceway of the kitchen, you can see just a little sliver of it across the bottom of that lip, maybe a quarter of an inch of it. But that's okay. It's up out of the way. It's not an eyesore. You're not tearing up the boxes. You're not banging them up. And it's reusable. You can continue to use this for years and years and years and years and not have to worry about it. Now, if your plastic wrap stops sticking to that little front edge of the cutter, just get a little tiny bit of rubbing alcohol on a piece of paper towel or a napkin or a cloth and just give it a slight wipe, just a one wipe across, just to freshen it up and get any dust or dirt off of it. Because, of course, being in the kitchen, cooking oils, airborne particles, that sort of thing can adhere to that and can kind of mess it up. Either way, guys, this is a fantastic little project. I'm so pleased with the way it turned out. It was kind of just one of those things that happened. I never planned on it. It wasn't a show idea on my list. It wasn't something that I've had sitting on my phone list for months. And I thought, you know what, I might as well make that one this week. No, this one was just, hey, look at those cutters. What can I do with that? This is what I could do with it. And it's pretty darn cool. Hey guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you've enjoyed today's show, if you found anything at all entertaining and you want a little more, why not like and subscribe to the channel? Guys, we have such an amazing audience base here, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of that. Guys, I'm going to put the links down below to the cutters for this. I hope that you're going to check them out if this is a project that interests you. I hope you've enjoyed today's content. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're going to give this one a try for yourself. I hope you're going to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.